In this very moment of my life, I want to speak to you about the research done on the Somali Bantu people, specifically by Van Leeman and Omar Eno. Dr. Eno, a PhD candidate in history at York University in Toronto, Canada, dedicated his work to exploring the legacy of slavery, stigma, and the trauma that followed. His life's mission has been to bring international attention to the issues that continue to affect the Bantu community. He was among the first to stand on an international stage and advocate for our civil and human rights, on behalf of those whose voices were buried deep beneath generations of silence. Bantu-speaking people make up a major portion of the population across nearly every African country south of the Sahara. There are over 300 groups, each with its own unique language and dialect. Their numbers range from just a few hundred to several million. Among the most well-known are the Kikuyu, the largest group in Kenya, the Swahili, whose language flows through the coasts of eastern Africa, and the Zulu of South Africa. The Somali Bantu can also be broken into distinct branches, those indigenous to Somalia, and those who were forcibly brought as slaves from Bantu-speaking tribes, eventually integrating into Somali society, while still clinging to the fragments of their original identity, their culture, their language, their ancestral memories. It is this latter group, those stripped from their homelands and souls, that suffered the most. They bore the brunt of persecution in Somalia and became those most in need of protection and resettlement. In their pursuit of safety, many sought refuge in Tanzania around 1993 and 1994, and later in Mozambique between 1997 and 1998. It wasn't until 1999 that the idea of resettlement in the United States became a reality. Yet through every generation, each marked by displacement, slavery, war, and hunger, not once was mental healing prioritized. Not once was the soul told, "You deserve peace." Sure, some used traditional daf to ward off evil, or turned to herbal remedies to heal the body. But how many times has that done more harm than good? It offers the illusion of being cured, yet beneath the rituals and remedies, so many remain silently broken, still mentally unwell. The pain that the Somali Bantu people have carried is vast and unspoken. Imagine being enslaved, stripped of your name, your origin, your purpose, then being used, abused, and discarded by those who now demand you dress like them, talk like them, move like them. When your mind caves in, you adapt. You no longer question why. You just do. So much fear has been passed down, embedded in the very nervous systems of Somali Bantu men and women. So much so that they don't even recognize the damage they're doing to their own children. Other ethnic groups once had power over them, their parents, and the parents before them. Trauma became generational. Trauma became normal. And no one in our community sees it, because we are so deep in our wounds that the very idea of mental health doesn't even exist. Confronting a Somali Bantu parent about the abuse they inflict on their children, emotionally, physically, mentally, is one of the hardest things to do. For some of them, control equals comfort. Abuse becomes tradition. They believe having authority over a child justifies every scream, every hit, every manipulation. But that cycle, it started long before them, and they misuse religion to justify it, twisting the words of Allah to back up their actions. They'll say things like, "Jannah lies under my feet, so I have authority over you," or, "You can't say your parents are lying. That's haram." But what happens when those words become tools of harm? It gets darker. You're told you can't refuse a man your parents chose for you. If you want Jannah, say yes. If you say no, you're sinful. This manipulation, this emotional blackmail, isn't discussed enough. The silence around it is suffocating. Inside almost every Somali Bantu household is a hidden tragedy. From the outside, everything looks fine. But behind closed doors, there are scars no one talks about. Some families force their young daughters, children really, into marriage. Some protect the ones who prey on them. The public celebration of marriages for girls between 14 and 17 is a heartbreaking sight. No school, no mental or emotional education, no chance to process trauma. And then they become parents, repeating the cycle, raising children while still carrying their own untreated wounds. Let's go deeper. No one advised these girls about the reality of raising children back to back in America, the mental, physical, and financial exhaustion that comes with it. Instead, they're pressured to keep having babies, sometimes for the sake of tax returns or to prepare for the next wedding. Innocent children are being pushed into motherhood with no tools for survival. And yet, despite how damaging these weddings can be to the minds of our daughters, they are also the only moments Somali Bantu women gather, laugh, and celebrate. 2 days after barely speaking to one another, suspicious of witchcraft, convinced someone is jealous. And they might not be wrong, because our collective mindset is broken. At these events, laughter often isn't real. It's performative. Women gossip about other families, sometimes just one city over. Then comes the funerals, where people show up just so they won't be judged for not showing up. They contribute money, but the condolences rarely feel sincere. Instead, they whisper about how so-and-so struggled to bury their dead. False stories spread like wildfire, and when it comes to sexual abuse, support is nearly non-existent. I once heard a parent say, "Don't tell your father. That would crush him." That's not protection. That's enabling. Some parents even blame the child, and once again their mental health is disregarded. Sometimes people pretend to care, only to gather details about a child's trauma and then broadcast it. They call relatives, they go on WhatsApp, they use a child's pain as punishment, humiliating them in front of people they don't even know. That child becomes a laughingstock in both the US and Africa. I've heard Bantu parents call someone else's daughter fast or a show-off without ever asking what she went through. Maybe she was sexually abused. Maybe she's fighting for her life silently. But nobody is watching their words. Nobody is helping these kids heal. The mind is sensitive, but we treat it like it doesn't exist. Let me say this clearly. It's enough. Our generation must break this cycle. We must create peace in our homes and in our minds. We can't raise each other in chaos and expect serenity. This isn't our land. You cannot survive in a country like this with a bolted mind. If you don't nurture your child's soul, the system will break them, and then you'll wonder why your child resents you. We cannot be our own enemies anymore. We cannot be shocked when our sons and daughters grow up with no sense of identity. It's time to heal. It's time to choose better.